beautiful and terrible world. I just need to escape from reality, the one true nightmare. Maybe then I'll be able to deal with this horror. Jack thought this to himself as he lay on his back, staring up at the ceiling of his dimly lit room, a small strip of light shining through the partially cracked window. He turned over onto his side, wrinkling the black covers on top of him, his cheek pressed up against the black, dampened pillow. His face was stained with tear streaks from being locked up in his room. Young Jack had always been afraid of being isolated, being left alone in the cold and the dark. And ironically, that very fear was fulfilled with his own doing. His grandfather had recently passed away, leaving him feeling comatose, as if he had nobody to live for. Jack had left his grandfather, and to have him ripped away so fast, with no warning, it tore him up inside. School didn't help either. "Jack, it's time to go, honey. You'll miss school." His mother called out to him. She sounded exhausted, but at the same time, concerned. Jack groaned as he wiped the tears off of his face. He had to get ready for school, and that meant the cleanup of tears from when he had cried himself to sleep the previous night. Any day that he could just lay there in his bed, he did only that, inhaling only the crisp, cold scent of air conditioning. "Give me a minute." He sniffled and sat up on his bed. The springs creaked with his every movement. He slowly crawled off the side of his wooden-made bed, his muscles weak from complete inaction for the past several weeks. He got into his clothes as he felt complete fear and sadness envelop him. Once he was ready to go, in his baggy sweatpants and black sweatshirt, he walked down the stairs, terrified of what the day had to offer. "Hurry up, it's almost time to go," his mother called up once more, concerned with not being on time. Jack was never good at achieving that. "I'm coming, just give me a second." He finally got to the bottom of the white carpet-padded staircase and walked over to the kitchen where his mother was. She stood, leaning against the mahogany-colored cabinets. She wore a white shirt and jeans, contrasting against her dark brown eyes. Jack stood there and waited for his mom to say something. Well, it's time to go. If you feel up to it, I could always just write you a sick note if you don't feel good." She questioned him, concerned for his personal health. She half-heartedly smiled, attempting to make him feel better. "I'll be fine." He reached down the table and grabbed the water bottle that his mom had put there the night before. He walked towards the garage, not thinking twice about eating. His feet clomped against the wooden floors, creating vibrations that shook the ground. "You should eat something. It's not healthy to..." "I'm not hungry." He stopped her mid-sentence and opened the door. Jack jumped out, his book bag yanking down on his shoulders as he landed on the pale, dirty concrete of the garage. His face was dull and expressionless. He got in the farthest back seat in the minivan, putting his stuff to the side of himself. "Why don't you sit up here? It has butt warmers." His mother spoke to him, hoping to get a smile, but his face didn't budge. "I just want to be by myself." He stared out the window as they waited for the garage door to pull all the way up. The growing sliver of light hit his eye. "I just want you to be happy. I just love to see you smile." The rest of her words got drowned off as Jack started to daydream. "Hey, kid!" A tall, burly man towered over Jack, his muscles glistening in the sunlight. He wore only a garment to cover up his unpresentable areas. Jack looked around and realized that he was in an arena, much like the ones in stereotypical gladiator movies. The pillars towered around them, casting a long rectangular shadow down the sand-covered ground. People in the crowd cheered as they finally saw some interaction. They stood up and shouted from the stone ring that made up their seats. Jack looked around and saw the king smiling, seeming as if he gained pleasure from the suffering of others. "What do you want?" Jack spoke back to the man with the mean attitude present in his voice. He looked up at him and snickered. "I know what you want. You want to kill me. We are in an arena, after all." He shouted, startling the man. "No. What I want to do is get you out of here. Do you think I would kill you after all we've been through?" The man yelled at Jack angrily as the man quickly bent over and threw him over his shoulder. People began to cheer even louder, thinking that the fight had begun. They jumped up and down in front of their stone seats. "Hey, what the heck are you doing?" Jack pounded his fists on the back of the sweat-covered man, making drops of liquid fly everywhere each time he hit him. "I'm saving your butt." He charged towards the metal gates and jumped, sticking his leg out towards it. The man screamed as he destroyed the metal bars that were holding them in, sprinting towards the final exit. The people began to riot, angry at what they felt like was treason. They booed him, and the king stood up, furious, his clothing flapping around as he flung his arms in the air, howling. He looked over at his armor-clad guards and pointed them towards the two escapees. "You're gonna get us both killed." Jack began to slam harder on the man's back and slipped out of his hold, landing on his head and simultaneously snapping back into reality. "All right, time to get out." His mother turned back and looked at him. He had a slight grin on his face, but that faded quickly after he remembered where he was. For him, school was hell on earth. He got up out of his seat and slumped over, his head nearly hitting the roof of the car. He walked towards the car door. Bye. His mother looked over her shoulder at him, hoping to get a response, but he just swung the door open and hopped out, not even bothering to close it. Well, here we go again. Jack spoke to himself as he walked towards the brown, brick-covered school, making sure to be as normal as possible. He preferred to be invisible rather than to be seen and heard again. Jack put the hood from his sweatshirt on as he scanned the front yard covered in patterns of beige concrete pavement, looking for the kids that typically bullied him. He turned his head to the right and saw the worst person out at the school. Jack shuddered at the sight of him and walked the other way, hoping not to be seen. His heart beat faster and his legs moved quicker. He was practically jogging. The only difference was that he was standing up perfectly straight. He avoided so much as looking at him. "Hey, kid, come over here." The bully's voice boomed through the schoolyard. Jack stopped at the sound of it. He ignored it, slowly walking forward, hoping that it wasn't him that was being addressed. "Kid, I said come over here. You deaf?" Jack stopped again and turned around. He slowly lifted the hood off of his head to see better. He pointed at himself, hoping for no response. "Yeah, you. Who else would it be?" Jack walked forward slowly. "What do you want?" Jack spoke, timidly, terrified that if he said the wrong thing, that he might wind up getting beaten. Jack took a few more steps, trying to buy as much time as possible to think of what to do. "I just want you to get over here, today." "Sorry, I'm not used to being back at school." Jack walked a little faster. His heart began to violently pulsate. "Well, duh, neither are any of us. That's kind of what break does to you, know." Jack finally reached him, his face red, his ears burning, and his body weak. The kid grabbed him by the sweatshirt and lifted him in the air. "David, you know you don't have to do this." Jack pleaded, terrified as he hung there, his sweatshirt starting to choke him. His legs swung violently side to side. "Shut it." David took his free hand and drove it into the middle of Jack's body, causing him to cringe. "It's good to see you. I'm not enjoyed today." He punched Jack once more, causing him to gag, nearly throwing up. David gave him one last look before he tossed him to the side. Jack skid against the concrete, smashing his head onto the pavement. He lay on his side, contemplating, just letting everything go around him. He thought about how it'd be better to not exist anymore than suffer the hell that he was in. He got onto his knees, staring at the ground, his palms pushing against the warm pathway. Tears started to well up in his eyes as he got onto his feet and walked towards the school. He stared at the transparent glass on the doors, walking towards them. He stretched his hand out and opened the door with very little force. The rush of arctic-like air and the smell of old textbooks hit Jack in the face, causing him to hesitate before he walked in. "Welcome back," Jack spoke aloud to himself, walking to his locker. He paced the hallway, his feet skidding against the checker-patterned, rubber-like tiling. He looked down the hallway to his left and saw his locker, blue, green, and white papers overflowing out of the sides. He sighed as he remembered about his locker partner, Rob, that had been expelled. Now he kindly left all the papers behind for him to clean up. He fidgeted, opening his locker. All of the contents spilled out all over the floor, and Jack grunted angrily. He stared at the pile, decided to deal with it later. He zipped open his book bag, staring inside it as he yanked out his binder's notebooks. "At least I enjoy orchestra," Jack thought to himself as he stuffed his book bag into the locker, slamming it. He rose to his feet and jogged down the hallway to the next class. He looked to his left, the notebook and binder nearly bouncing out of his hands. He reached the large room filled with instruments of all sizes, screeching and clashing of pitch, catching him off guard as he found his instrument and his seat. He opened up his case and pulled his violin out, plucking each string. He sat there, plucking the same 4 notes as he stared at the ceiling. He intensely looked at the pale white ceiling tiles that covered the walls above him as he began to drift away from reality. "Kid, you okay? You fell, but I could only just pick you up and run some more, because it would get us. I may or may not have also dropped you 3 or 5, maybe 7 times, and every time on the head." The same man from Jack's previous dream yelled at him, spit flying out of his mouth and onto Jack's face. His breath reeked of rotten fish and old trash. "Yeah, I'm fine." Jack wiped the saliva off his forehead and cheek, disgusted at the spit and thankful for the rescue. Jack looked around at his surroundings to see that he was in a strange home made out of what looked like sandstone. The gritty walls formed a dome around them both, leaving only small holes for windows and a narrow one-floor door. "Thank God. I thought you were going to have brain damage or something. What's my name? Do you remember?" "You never told me your name." "Anyways, What do we do now? Wait till we get caught? Move on? Jack sat up as the man backed away. It's Abraham, and what we're going to do is go out to the village center and kill their prize dragon. It's like killing the most popular person in the world, except it's a beast that's killed thousands and scorched millions. Anywho, it's time to go. Abraham leaned over and yanked Jack onto his feet. Wait a second, we're going now? What are you thinking? I just woke up from some sort of coma or something, and you want to slay a fire-breathing, oversized lizard? Jack backed up, staring into the man's dark brown eyes. You have to do it now. It's the only way to redeem yourself, the only way not to get thrown into the king's prison. And trust me, it's a lot worse than it sounds. Abraham walked over to Jack and held out a sword, balanced on both of his tan brown hands. It was covered in gold that shined even in the barely lit room, and had a red handle that was almost like rubber-like in appearance. Jack grabbed the sword by the handle and held it parallel to the ground. Abraham backed up as Jack began to swing it around. He began to fling it around in patterns going in circles and squares, so he felt like he tested your knife. Are you ready to go slay a dragon without any training and a large chance of death? Abraham spoke jokingly, walking towards Jack. Yeah, I think I am. Jack began to walk out of the small home, and the light hit him. Jack, wake up, moron. You slept through class. A voice illuminated in Jack's ears, immediately waking him up. He rubbed his eyes. What? Jack was laid back on his chair as he finally fully snapped into reality. He sat up and looked around to see people packing up their instruments and realized that his friend, John, was the person talking to him. How come nobody woke me up? He began to pack his stuff up, angry at himself, and the class for letting it happen. Oh, believe me, we tried. You played fortissimo on a Mozart piece that we were sight reading, and you didn't freaking move. John towered over Jack, laughing at the hilarity of the situation. He must have been having a good dream. John smiled at him, his laughter slowly dying off. Whatever. Jack got up and put his violin case on the rack. He walked out of the room, jogging to his next class. He turned his head and saw David making his heart immediately begin to race faster and faster. He could feel the throbbing in his neck. Jack looked as David pointed at him and spoke to somebody standing by him. It was barely over a whisper, so nobody but who David was talking to could hear it. Hey kid, David called to him, sending chills down Jack's spine. He shivered and walked towards him, knowing that what was going to happen was inevitable. Jack raised his arms out to his sides. Do what you will. You're practically dead already. Jack stood there as David stared at him angrily. It's no fun if you're not scared of me. I just want to rip the tiniest pieces of joy and life out of you. David ogled him and grimaced. Whatever, you can take care of him. He pointed at the kid next to him, sending him forward to do his dirty work. The other kid walked up to Jack and looked him in the eyes, tears starting to well up. I'm sorry, but I have to. The kid grabbed a metal object from his back pocket and clenched it in his fists. He would just finish me off. Like I said, practically dead already. Jack stood there, arms still outstretched as the kid took the object, put his fingers between it, and began to slam his fists against Jack's head. With each hit, an image of his grandfather would appear. He saw him standing there beside the kid who was beating him, and with one final blow, Jack was comatose, lying there as the kid kept on pummeling him. The smell of iron filled the air. Jack saw something bright. He was no longer in the real world, but one that he felt like he belonged in. He saw his grandfather not too far away. He sprinted up to him, smiling from ear to ear for the first time in nearly a month. He ran to him, inhaling the sweet scent of cherry blossoms and fresh fruits. Jack, it's so good to see you. I've missed you so much. The elderly man hugged Jack tightly, tears streaming down his face. Liquid glistened in what seemed like daylight. Why did you have to leave us? Why so soon? Jack cried into his white robe, dampening it. I can't control those things. It just happened. Besides, there are a lot of hot women in heaven. Jack's grandfather chuckled as he wiped the tears off his face with his sleeve. Now I get to be with you, right? Jack looked up at his grandfather, smiling, tears still rolling down his cheeks. Not yet. You still have some work to do. His grandfather's eyes started to well up again, but he didn't cry this time. When will I see you again? Jack started to sob, his breaths becoming more frequent. Soon enough. Hey, maybe you'll get hit by a bus. Who knows? They laughed and moved apart to see each other's faces one last time. Goodbye. I love you so much. Jack sniffled as he turned away, and the white faded into reality. Jack woke up in a bed. The room he was in, painted and colored in one singular thing. White. He looked around and saw his mother sleeping on the chair to his left. Mom? Why are we here? What happened? Jack's memory was hazy from what felt like an hour ago. His mother instantly snapped awake, and the crisp scent of baby wipes and floor cleaner filled her nostrils. "Jack, you've woken up. Thank God. We thought we had lost you." Jack's mother jumped out of the chair and ran to his side, hugging him tightly and kissing him repeatedly on the forehead. She cried over his shoulder as she hugged him. "Some kid at school beat you senselessly with some brass knuckles. He nearly killed you. Why didn't you fight back?" She began to sob, angry and happy at the same time. Jack looked over at the large IV connected to his arm through a clear tubing. It was filled with transparent liquid. I felt as if I had nothing to live for. He looked his crying mom in the eyes, and she embraced him once more. "You always have us to live for." His mom squeezed him, smiling and crying from pure joy. The end.